Gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Striker, and about 2 years ago, I'd had enough of the Western dating world. I'd been screwed over with the laws and the systems that were over there, and I wanted to go to a place in the world that I could maybe find a traditional relationship that didn't have those laws, those rules, that environment that could destroy a man's life just because he ended a relationship. That mission led me to Ukraine, but one thing that I discovered along the way was that what I knew when I first started, even when I started my channel, was so different from what it is now. And it turned out that it wasn't just a journey or a documentation to try and find the woman of my dreams. It turned out that it was actually a journey for something far greater. It was to know the truth about women and relationships and people in general. If this sounds like you, then please subscribe to my channel. Anyway, enough of that. So anyway, topic for today is my thoughts on feminism. And is feminism going to infiltrate Ukraine the same way that it has done in the West? So there's this, I'm going to call it a misconception that post-USSR countries are well behind the ball when it comes to the West. And a lot of guys think this, and they think that they're going to catch up to the West. And in some aspects, that is true. They are behind, but in other aspects, they are well ahead. And one of those things is the mindset of the traditional Ukrainian woman, and that there's the possibility of feminism that's going to infiltrate and destroy it, and destroy the systems that are over there, the court system. That's all going to come over to Ukraine because Ukraine is, for some reason, is following the West because the West has such good systems in place. But I'm going to tell you something right now at the start of this video that I'm going to explain it. And that is that the ideology when it comes to feminism has already been in Ukraine. And it was rejected by the woman. And this was many years ago. So let me just say, the original video that I was going to make here was, why do Ukrainian women marry so young? And I had this, this thought in my mind, this theory that I was going to present to you guys. But then when I started researching it, it still sort of is there, but there was a whole lot of other stuff that came with it. See, I was under the impression, and you might be too, is that women of USSR were oppressed. But let's just put that aside just for the moment. Now, let's talk about feminism in the West. Without going too much into it, the idea behind the feminism is that they talk about these equal rights. Now, I don't know, it'll be very hard to find anybody, man or woman, who doesn't agree with equal rights, as long as there is equal outcomes to it. And let me just explain this really fast so that you understand it. Now, in my home country, which is New Zealand, they have to have a certain amount of female firefighters in the fire service. And that's because they want equal opportunities. That's not because they want equal outcomes. So let me put it to you this way. Let's say in that instance there is your house is on fire. You have two children that are up in the bedroom upstairs. One of them is 6 years old. One of them is 10 years old. And somebody has to go in there. One person can go into that house, a fireman or firefighter can go into that house, and they've only got one chance to take out both of your children, 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. You have the option between a female firefighter and a male firefighter. Which one are you going to choose? You're not going to say, well, I'll take the female firefighter because, it's right. It's PC correct or something like that. You're going to say the man, he needs to go because he is stronger and the outcome is probably going to be better, even though it may not be politically correct. So this is the equality of outcomes, okay? If the outcome is the same, whether it's a man or a female, then hey, whoever does the job, it doesn't really matter. Pay whatever it costs to get the job done, right? But that's not what the feminist movement is when it comes over to the West. It's all this bickering and arguing about, it's not arguing about the shitty jobs. It's not arguing who's going to work in the oil mines or dig coal or operate the shitty machinery or go to war. They're not fighting about that, right? They're fighting about the, how come we don't have the CEO jobs at the Fortune 500 companies? So there's a reason that I talk about the equality of outcome and not the equality of opportunity. So when I started making the notes for this video, that just grew and grew, but I'm going to try and condense it all down so it's like a nice short video for you guys. So let's go back to World War II. When this war occurred, there was about 8 million people from Ukraine that were killed. Majority, of course, were men. They were in the war, and they were also civilians as well. Of course, some women died as well, women and children, of course. But the majority were men. This led to a deficit of men in the population when it came to Ukraine. And so after World War II, the place was annihilated. Infrastructure was shit. There was no money. The country had to be rebuilt. And don't forget, this is after World War II was the Industrial Revolution. So this is when production really started to take hold. There was factories that were being opened up. Now, a good portion of the men were dead. They were killed. So the woman had to step up. The woman had to step up, and they had to take the man's role when it came to earning money. I won't even say just earning money, but just in order for the country to survive, in order for production to continue. These women were working in the coal mines. They were digging coal. They were working in the manufacturing plants where they were like with the big, I forget what you call it, the furnace, and they were like making car parts. They were cutting down the trees. They were building the buildings. They had to do these jobs not because they chose to do it. They did these jobs because it was required in order to survive. One, for them to have money, but also for the economy to start to thrive as well. Now, these are jobs that a man would normally do. These are labor-intensive jobs that a man would be strong enough to do. That it's built into us to do these labor-intensive jobs. And this happened for decades after the war. If there's no men, more men have to be made. More men have to grow to the age of where they can go to work before the woman can maybe make a decision whether or not they want to still work in this environment that is made for a man, and they can go back to maybe being a mother, a wife, and doing roles that are more suited for nurturing. Not only did women have to take on these roles to try and keep the country running, to try and build its infrastructure and try and build it back up after such a devastating event such as World War II, they also still had to be the mothers. That role never went away. It's not like somebody else came in and took this role and the few men that were left took that role. It wouldn't even make any sense. So they had to do two roles. So about 20, 30, 40 years later, when it starts to approach the fall of the Soviet Union, when Ukraine and all the other countries obviously got their independence, and more men were introduced into the pool. I'm going to call it the pool. Were introduced into the pool. Women then got to a position where they could choose again. They could choose whether or not they want to continue to do these jobs like digging coal or cutting down trees in the forest, or whether they could go and just be a housewife or just a mother. And remember, the opportunity is there, right? They've been doing it. They've been earning money. They know what's there. They also know what's on the other side as well. And remember, this is a completely different generation that's come through this time. The same with the men that have come in and taken back these masculine roles. And what do the Ukrainian women choose? They choose to be a stay-at-home mother. They choose to be a mother or a nurturer, what nature had intended to be. They're not built to dig coal or lumberjack trees. So the only way that I see it, in order to get away from doing this shitty work that the man has to do, would be to lock down a man, get knocked up, have some children. Okay, so the sooner that they can do that, the better it is, whether it's the age of 18, 17, 19, 20, 21. And so that's where the video actually started, was why do they have this mentality that they want to get pregnant so fast? Why do they want to get married so fast? I'm not necessarily talking about what's happening today. That's a video for a whole other day. But traditionally, like after the fall of the Soviet Union, why did they want to get married so fast? Why did they want to have kids so fast? And it was because they had to make a decision. They either go back to work like their mother did, or they become a mother and a wife. And let's face it, it's in their nature to be a mother or a wife. Females are nurturers. That's why they take jobs as nurses, as kindergarten teachers. It's in their nature. For the man, it's in our nature to go out and cut down a tree and dig shit out of the ground. And you may be thinking that women of USSR, that they were forced to go and work. They didn't want to do it, and they basically pushed them to go and do it. But really, it was out of necessity. It had to happen, and it's no different than a man going to work and doing a job that he doesn't want to do in order to provide for either himself or whatever is happening around him. But here's the thing that you need to consider. The woman in Ukraine got the right to vote in 1917, which is well before the United States. It wasn't long after that, because obviously women get the right to vote, they can be elected into parliament. It wasn't long after that 50% of the ruling party was women. This is like 100 years ago. Just prior to that, the government introduced free childcare. So a woman could choose to go to work if she wanted to. They also introduced maternity leave so that she could go to work and knowing that she could leave work and get paid for it. This was 100 years ago. So have a look at the whole timeline. They had the right to vote before many other countries, USA, but not New Zealand. New Zealand was the first. Just thought I'd put that in there for some reason. I don't know. They had the rights given to them to basically do whatever they wanted to do. And then unfortunately there were some shitty times and they were forced to go out and work, do the man's job. And then it got to a point in time where They could choose whether they still wanted to do the man's job, or whether they could go back to being a nurturer, being a mother, being a wife. And they chose to be a wife. Maybe it could be argued that being a wife and a mother is a lot easier than digging coal. And I'd say that it is. And I did, when I was looking up, doing some research for this video, I actually found I think it's called not the Pink Panthers, the Pink Pussies. I think it was. I don't know, maybe something like that. Anyway, yeah, I think it is that. But they were on the street and they were protesting, and you'd be kind of thinking, well, it's Ukraine, it's Eastern Europe. There are Eastern Europe women protesting. Surely they must look better than the Western ones, right? No, it's like you look at these feminists, and they don't want to attract men at all, and most of them probably are not even interested in men on a romantic sexual level anyway. So they're trying to ruin it for the rest of the women as well. But pretty much every woman that I've spoken to in Ukraine, and I've talked about shit that's going on in the West, just can't believe it, and they have no interest in it whatsoever. What they want is they want a man who's going to take care of them. If they can sit at home and look after the family and cook dinner, then they'll do that. They're not interested in taking the masculine rights or the roles away from a man. So as you can see, USSR was not an oppressed country. Yeah, okay, for sure. Like maybe men held a different stature when it came to some of the work. I mean, a lot of it was working in factories. It was shitty work. It was shitty jobs, right? So you have to respect them for doing that. And chances are the outcome of their work, of a man's work in those jobs, was going to be better. It was going to be faster. It was going to be maybe better quality. Just the way that we are built. It's just the way that it is. And when women got the opportunity to move back into a role that was a more feminine role, they fucking jumped at it. It was theirs. They wanted it. They didn't want to do this other job. That was for the man to do that. They didn't do those roles. They didn't do those jobs because they fought for those jobs. They had to do them because it was a necessity. It had to happen. Nobody else was going to do those jobs. There was nobody fighting for them to we want to have more equal jobs, more equal rights when it comes to these shitty jobs. Nobody was fighting for that. They didn't want to do it. They had to do it out of necessity because the men, unfortunately, had died during the war. So when they got the opportunity to go back to being a mother and a wife, or just being a mother and a wife without having to go and do this other stuff, they jumped at it. But remember, competition was fierce, right? A majority of the men were dead. So they had to look beautiful. They had to be feminine. They had to try and lock down a man as fast as possible because there's not that many of them. And the only way they're going to lock down a man is if they look beautiful. And I believe that this is where the femininity of the women that are in Ukraine comes from. They don't feel ashamed by it. In fact, they flaunt it. In fact, it is who they are. And if you come to Ukraine, you'll see it. Every woman looks absolutely immaculate. Makeup's done. They're dressed beautifully, no matter what they're doing, whether they're just going to go pick up some bread from the shop. And a lot of these women that are doing that now, they would be daughters of women that had to go out and work, or maybe even granddaughters of some of them. And that gets passed down. Mothers will pass down the traits of themselves. If a mother is beautiful and feminine and teaches her daughter to do the same, she will do the same as well. I'm not saying that will go for many other generations, it may not, but right now, at this point in time, that is how it is. So what I discovered when I was looking into this is that the feminist movement actually already happened. They did go out and do the jobs that the men had to do. Sure, they were not the glamorous jobs, but I guess back then, only if you're an oligarch, you'd have a glamorous lifestyle as it was. But they had to go and do those jobs. And they decided that they didn't want to do those jobs. So the women made that decision not to go with feminism. And back then, I don't know if you would describe it as feminism, but they didn't, whatever it was, they didn't want it. Instead, they decided to use their femininity to progress, to look beautiful, to lock down a man, to attract men, have kids, get married. That was what they wanted to do. Feminists are fighting with 300,000 years of biological evolution that pushes men and women in different places to do different things. And whether you try and use equality based on being PC, or whether it's for survival like it was in USSR, it's never going to work. Obviously, times have changed now. Obviously, women are not getting married as young as what they were because they don't have to. Because there are so many more opportunities when it comes to excelling yourself in a career and something that interests you. And the STEM fields in Ukraine is massive. Technology, IT, even being a lawyer, a doctor, whatever it is, it's easy to achieve those things. So now they can choose whether they want to excel in a field that interests them. That may be a field that's more nurturing, I guess, by nature than cutting down a tree or digging coal out of the ground. or if they want to be a mother or a wife. But one thing is for sure, women all around the world, no matter where they are, whatever country, whatever tribe in the bush, wherever they are, they all have the same fundamental values that have had since the dawn of time, and that is to be a nurturer. So whether they choose to be a nurturer when it comes to their job, or whether to be a wife or a mother, it's entirely up to them. But no matter what, she will always choose the route of being a nurturer. It's just built into her. My thoughts anyway when it comes to feminism in Ukraine. I know a lot of guys, they talk about it, the feminist movement's going to move in and destroy it. It's not going to happen. The majority, like I would say, in fact, I've never actually spoken to one woman, even professional woman, who have thought that feminism being moved into Ukraine is a good idea. It's not going to happen. It happened by accident. They tried it and it didn't work. My name is Striker. If you like the video, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.